Good morning. Happy Wednesday. I had to think what the day was then. It's Wednesday. Side note, I have just discovered that Facebook Live Producer doesn't like it when you add emojis to the live title or description. I tried it 3 times before I eventually realised that it wasn't going to let me. I kept thinking it was some random glitch, but every time I added an emoji, it kind of made the page die, and I had to reload it and start again. So there you go. I'd love to know. Does anyone else have problems adding emojis to Facebook Live Producer, or is it just me? Okay. Anyway, so I am here to chat to you about niche. Um, yeah, this is a this is something that a lot of people struggle with. It's definitely something that I've struggled with. It's taken me, in fact, 3 years of business to finally find a niche that feels right for me. Yeah, and it's something that's so important, but so difficult to nail down. So I wanted to come and chat about a few factors that are really going to help you if this is something that you're struggling with. There are 4 factors that are really going to help you decide if the niche that you have is right, or the niche you're considering is right, or whatever it may be. So before I dive into my 4 factors, let's talk about why having a niche is so important. It's one of those terms that's kind of bandied about quite a lot in the online business world. If you've been around the online business world for any length of time, you are bound to have heard people talking about, how you need to niche down and how you need to get a niche and all of this kind of stuff. So why is it so important? Is it something that you really need to worry about? So let's talk niche and why you need one. So basically the idea, the concept behind having a niche is that you take your kind of general business sector or industry, and then you kind of bring it down and get a little bit more specific. And the idea behind it is that in doing that, it's easier for you to market yourself. It's easier for you to stand out in the crowd, because when you try to market yourself as a generalist, it's very difficult to stand out amongst all the noise, especially in the online business world. So the idea behind getting a niche is that it makes you more specialist, and by being more specialist, you become more attractive to your ideal clients. So that's the idea behind it. Now, what is a niche? So there are a number of different ways that you can actually niche your business. So one is who you work with. So for me, I'm a business coach, which is a pretty broad spectrum, but I'm a business coach specifically for mums who have service-based businesses and who are aiming to get to 5k months. So I have taken what is a very broad spectrum of business coaching, and then I've made it much more niche by saying, well, I'm doing business coaching, but I'm doing it for these specific people. So that's one way you can niche. You can niche your business by niching who it is that you're actually working with. You can also niche your business by picking a subsector of your industry. So, for example, I could have said, instead of doing broad business coaching, I'm just going to do social media coaching. I'm just going to do copywriting coaching. So I could have niched that way, and actually chosen a niche that was a subsector of my industry. Okay, so there's a few ways that you can do it, and there's no right or wrong, to be honest. It's more about the process of getting more specific, so that what you're doing is meaning that your messaging when you're creating content, your messaging is more specific. So this is why your niche is so important, because it allows you to speak more specifically to your ideal clients. Okay, so for example, me picking my niche of mums with service-based businesses means that when I create content, when I'm talking about what I do, when I'm talking about literally everything that I do, essentially, when I'm creating my offers, when I'm creating content, when I'm selling, all of everything that I'm doing is now talking very specifically to mums who have service-based businesses. So when a mum with a service-based business lands on my Facebook page, they see that the page is fully booked mums. They see that my group is fully booked mums. They immediately know that this is for them. They immediately know. They're like, oh, I'm a mum, I've got a business, I want to be fully booked, this is for me. Okay, and that is the beauty of having a niche, because it means I am much more easily able to attract my people, my mums, who, those are the people I want to attract, than if I just called myself, business coach. Because then a mum kind of lands on my page and she's like, she's a business coach, I do need some help, but is it for me? Is it going to be right? Whereas because I'm fully booked mums, oh, that is for me. She's going to be talking to mums. She's going to be talking about the specific challenges I have. She gets me because I'm a mum and she's a mum. So that's really the power of niching. Equally, if I had chosen to go with the niche of, say, social media coach, I know that anyone who specifically has social media issues with growing their business is going to be much more likely to come to me than to a general business coach, because they're like, well, a general business coach, like, I don't need this, this, and this. What I really want is just social media help. And so anyone who's specifically looking for social media support is much more likely to come and work with me, because I'm specialising in that, if that had been what I had actually done. But so you see the importance of niching. One example that I often give is the example of a photographer. So say, for example, you are getting married next summer. Thankfully not this summer, because it's all been a fiasco for the poor people trying to get married this year. You're getting married next summer, and hopefully that's all going to happen and go ahead nicely, and you are looking for a photographer for your wedding. Okay, and you've got two options. Okay, you're looking at two different websites, two different photographers. Photographer A, on their website, they're talking about all their different services. They do weddings, they do family portraits, they do pets, they do landscapes. They do it all. Okay, and then option B, you're looking on option B, and here you've got a wedding photographer, and they specialise in weddings. Their passion is capturing your special day. That's what they do all day, every day. Probably not all day, every day as a wedding photographer, but you get my drift. But yeah, that's their passion. They specialise in doing weddings. Now, who are you most likely to choose? You're most likely to choose the specialist, the person who, lives and breathes wedding photography, as opposed to the person who does a range of all of the things. Yeah. And the same is true for you and your business. And this is the power of niching. So hopefully that has helped you to see why it's so important to get your niche right, because it makes it so much easier to build an audience. It makes it so much easier to engage that audience, and it makes it so much easier to sell to that audience. So it's pretty powerful stuff. Okay, so let's move on to my 4 factors that are going to help you find the right niche for you. So my first one is passion. Okay, so when you are trying to come up with a niche for your business, to me this is like of utmost importance. You need to make sure that the niche you choose is something that you feel passionate about. Something that is going to keep you motivated, that's going to get you up in the morning, that's going to get you through the tough days, and the stuff that goes on in business. We as business owners, we all face tough days. We all have things that don't go according to plan. And if you're doing something that you don't feel passionate about, it's really difficult to stay motivated through all that. It's really difficult to kind of get back up and keep going when things go wrong if you are not doing something that you are passionate about. So going back to our example of the photographer, don't pick weddings if you are not passionate about photographing people's weddings, because that's going to show. It's going to show up for you. It's going to mean that you don't enjoy your business as much as you should. And let's face it, as business owners, one of the big reasons that we're doing this is because we want to enjoy what we do. We want to spend time doing things that we love. So make sure that it's something that you are passionate about. For me, I love working with mums because I am a mum. I get what it's like to be a mum, and I feel passionate about helping other mums do what I've done. Because I get why they want to do it, because that's why I did it. You know, it's something I'm passionate about. I was passionate about having my own business so that I could work around my family, so that I could do the school runs, so that I could get financial independence, so that I could earn my worth, so that I could have an impact. And that, you know, that's why all my mums that I work with are in business. That's what they're passionate about too. And so, you know, that fuels with me with motivation, that fuels me with excitement to keep going, and passion and drive to, you know, to keep growing and to keep helping as many mums as I can. If I had picked a niche that I, you know, had less of an emotional connection with, you know, I wouldn't be as successful in business as I am now. So, number one, passion. Make sure the niche that you choose is something that you are passionate about. Number two is ability. So obviously you need to choose something that you have, you know, enough expertise or experience in that you can actually sell your service, that you can actually make money from it. Now, I'm going to add a caveat here, because actually this is an area where we tend to undersell ourselves anyway. We tend to go into business, even as experts, feeling like imposters and kind of diminishing our expertise and feeling like, you know, who do I think I am to be doing this? So, you know, let's not do that to ourselves. But equally, let's not set up a business. You know, if my photographer, if I've never really done photography before, it's probably not a great idea for me to set up set up a business as a photographer. I need to, you know, I need to learn my craft, and I need to have the expertise that I need to fulfill the kind of promise that my offer is making. So a really key point here, though, is that often we feel like we need to be more of an expert than we actually need to be. So there's another fab story that I tell often, but I love it, and it's especially, I think, personally if you're kind of a coach, and in that type of business, because often as coaches, you know, we feel like we have to have all the qualifications, we have to have all the experience, we have to be, you know, up here while we work with clients kind of down here. We have to be, you know, that far in, you know, ahead of them in our expertise. Now, there's a great story that I share a lot because it was a real light bulb moment for me when I was getting started and kind of going through all that same stuff. And it came from a coach that I was following, and she was chatting about when she was at school and she had maths lessons with a hugely qualified maths teacher. He was like a professor, you know, he had, you know, been studying maths for years and years and years. He was about as qualified as a maths teacher could be, okay? And she would go into his lessons and she wouldn't understand a word he was talking about. And so after each lesson, she would sit down with her best friend, who was, you know, better at maths than she was, and her best friend would sit and go through the lesson and explain it to her in terms that she understood, so that she could, you know, get the homework done or whatever it was. And the point of the story is that oftentimes, in fact, more often than not, the person who makes the best teacher is the person who's actually a half step ahead, as opposed to the person who is so far ahead that they can no longer really remember or empathise with what it's like to be here. So when we're kind of thinking about this ability side of our niche, don't undersell yourself. Don't feel like you have to be 10 steps ahead, because you don't. But obviously, equally, don't choose a niche where you don't have, you know, enough experience or ability to sell, or to, you know, to help others. And usually you will know. You will know, you know, whether you do or you don't. Okay, right. My next point is specificity. That's a tough word to say. Specificity. So what do I mean by that? Well, as it sounds, getting specific. So the whole point of having a niche, as we kind of talked about at the start of this, is to get more specific, because the more specific, the more specialist you are, the easier it is for you to stand out to your ideal clients. And the key here is to remember that those are the people you're trying to stand out to. It doesn't matter about everyone else, because they are not the people that you're trying to attract. You are trying to attract your ideal clients. And so the more specifically you can speak to those people, the more you will stand out to them, the more attractive that you will be to them. And the problem that we face as business owners is that every instinct in us is to try to please everyone, because that, you know, that's human. You know, we want everyone to like us. We want to help as many people as possible. The problem with that, especially when you're just getting started, is it's very difficult to talk to everyone and be heard. You know, if you go and stand on top of a hill and try and shout at the world, you're going to struggle. So we need to start off by talking to a small group of people first. And as your business grows, as people recognize you, as your brand gets more visible, then you can start to kind of, broaden that niche if you want to. You might, by the time you get to that point, not want to, because you might see how successful you are in this niche, and it might, by then your kind of doubts and sort of slight nervousness around getting that narrow niche, will have gone, because you'll have proven to yourself that actually it works. But if you want to, you can then at that stage broaden out, because you already have that visibility, you already have that audience, you're already standing out from the crowd, you've got people's attention. So at that point, you can then go, hey, I'm now adding this service that's going to, do this, that kind of broadens out slightly from your niche. But when you're starting out and you don't have that audience yet, you haven't got people's attention yet, it's much easier to get their attention when you are talking about something specific, or you're talking to a very specific group of people. So remembering that when you're choosing a niche, the point is to get as specific as possible, and it will feel like it's going against all your instincts. It will feel really hard, because you won't be able to help but think about, well, if I do this, what about all those people I could help? And what about all those people I could help? And if I start talking to these people specifically, they might leave. They might, unlike my Facebook page, or they might leave my group. And yes, that might happen. But what is going to happen is that more people who are actually your ideal clients are going to suddenly go, oh, hey, she's talking to me. And they will come, and you will find it so much easier to actually grow if you can let go of those other people who are not your ideal clients. So that's specificity. My final point is profitability. So let's face it, that's why we are in business. We need to be making money. If we're not making money, we don't have a business, it's a hobby. So you need to make sure that whatever niche you choose is viable in terms of, is it going to make you money? So a good way to check that, and again, sometimes this can feel counterintuitive, is to see if other people are already out there making money from it. If other people are making money from it, then you can too. And sometimes we can be scared by that, because it's like, oh, well, there's already someone doing that, so I can't. Someone in my group yesterday gave a fantastic analogy for this, which I absolutely love. And that is when you go into the supermarket and you look at the bread aisle and you see the number of different makes of bread. If if there could be a whole aisle of different makes of bread and they're all getting bought, you can absolutely have a business that someone else is already doing. I mean, look at the number of plumbers, electricians, and all of that kind of stuff that we have as well. Competition is actually a good sign. It's a sign that you have a niche where there is a demand and people are already making money, and so you absolutely can too. Okay, so those are my 4 factors. We had passion, ability, specificity, and I always have to make a face when I say that for some reason, I don't know why, and profitability. So if you are struggling to come up with your niche, have a think about each of those 4 factors and kind of think, is this something I'm passionate about? Is this something that I have enough experience in? And notice I'm not talking qualifications. I'm not saying, you have to have some kind of qualification. It's about ability and experience. Yes, for some things, obviously, you might need a qualification. If you're going to become an accountant, you're probably going to need a qualification, but not for everything. It's about experience. If you are going to be helping someone through an experience that you have been through yourself, perhaps you're going to become, help people who are grieving, who have suffered a loss. If you have suffered a loss and come through that loss, that is all the qualification you need. You have experience that has taught you something that you can now teach someone else and help them with their situation. So it doesn't necessarily come down to qualifications. It comes down to experience and ability and of course our passion and our specificity and our profitability. So have a think about those things. If you are not already in my Facebook group, the Facebook group is called Fully Booked Mums. get yourself over there. We have tons and tons of good stuff that's going to help you with all of this kind of thing. The group is set up to help mums get consistent clients, get consistent 5k months. So we have regular workshops, we have guest lives today. We've got 2 guest lives. We've just had a fantastic one all about automating your accountancy systems. Later this evening, we've got another fab one about getting your legal stuff right as well. So some really, really fab guest lives. We have those every week. We have workshops most weeks. We have Q&As, G&T Q&As. So if you're not already over there, come join us. It's a fantastic group. It's really, really friendly. Totally safe place if you have questions or anything like that about your business. I'll pop a link in the comments, but do come and join us. And that's it for today. I hope that was helpful for you. If you have any questions about your niche, feel free to pop them in the comments and I'll be happy to help. And I'll see you soon. Take care.